The Arizona sun burned like molten gold across the horizon, painting the desert in fierce shades of orange and red. The wind carried the scent of dry sage and dust, whispering across the empty plains where silence held stories older than time itself. Jack Callahan, a rugged cowboy with eyes as hard as the land he roamed, rode through the Valley of Ghosts, a place so named for the whispers of lost battles and fallen souls that seemed to linger on every breeze. He wasn't a man of many words, nor one who sought company. The war between settlers and the Apache had taken everything from him: his ranch, his brother, and his faith in mankind. Now, he rode simply to outrun the memories that clung to him like shadows. But fate, cruel and kind in equal measure, had plans that would change him forever. He found her near the riverbed, half-conscious, bleeding, her wrists bound, her skin marked with bruises that told stories of cruelty and capture. She was young, wild, and fierce even in her weakness, an Apache girl with hair black as midnight and eyes that blazed with fire. For a long moment, he thought she was a mirage, the kind that the desert conjures for lonely men. But when she stirred, gasping softly as the cold water touched her lips, Jack realized she was real, painfully real. He knelt beside her, cutting the ropes with his knife, his heart pounding in ways it hadn't in years. She flinched, trying to crawl away even in her brokenness, murmuring words in her tongue that he couldn't understand. But her fear, her defiance, spoke louder than any language. "Easy there," he said in a low, gravelly tone. "Ain't here to hurt you." She didn't trust him. Why would she? His kind had been her people's enemy for generations. But when he offered water and wrapped her shivering body in his coat, something in her eyes flickered, not trust, not yet, but maybe hope. Over the next days, he nursed her back to life in a hidden cabin deep in the canyons. She refused to speak at first, watching him with the wary gaze of a wild animal. Her name, he later learned, was Naya, Little River, in her tongue. Her tribe had been attacked by outlaws posing as soldiers. She'd been taken, traded, and left for dead. When she finally told him her story, her voice trembled. But her spirit didn't. Jack saw in her something he'd long buried in himself. A fight. A refusal to surrender. He thought he was the one saving her. But every time she looked at him, every time she dared to smile faintly, it felt like she was the one pulling him out of the grave he'd been living in. Days turned into weeks. The cabin became a fragile sanctuary between two broken worlds. She taught him words in Apache, laughed quietly when he stumbled over them, and in return, he showed her how to ride, how to shoot, how to mend a saddle. Sometimes, when the moon rose high, she would hum ancient songs that spoke of spirits and storms, and he'd sit in silence, listening like a sinner in church. For the first time since the war, peace didn't feel like a lie. But peace, in those wild lands, never lasted long. One morning, while he was checking traps near the river, he saw smoke in the distance. Soldiers. The same ones who'd called her people savages. They were hunting. Not for justice, but for blood. Jack's heart sank. He knew if they found Naya, they'd kill her without a second thought. He rode back hard, dust rising behind him, his chest tight with dread. When he burst into the cabin, she already knew. Her eyes were calm, steady. "Go," he said. "I'll draw them away." But she shook her head, placing her hand over his. "You saved me," she whispered in halting English. "Now I save you." They didn't have time to argue. The thunder of hooves grew louder. Jack grabbed his rifle, loading shells with hands that didn't shake anymore. The fear was gone, replaced by something pure. Something that burned brighter than death. When the soldiers arrived, they found not a frightened girl, but a warrior's daughter standing beside a cowboy who had nothing left to lose. Together, they fought, two souls bound by survival and something deeper. The battle was fierce and short. Jack took a bullet to the shoulder, but he kept firing until the dust cleared and silence fell once more. When it was over, he slumped against the cabin wall, blood staining his shirt. Naya knelt beside him, pressing her small hands against the wound, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Stay," she whispered. "Please stay." Her voice broke something open in him. All the years of pain, loss, and guilt poured out in that moment. He lifted a trembling hand to touch her face. "Ain't goin' anywhere," he managed with a weak smile. She leaned close, her forehead against his, whispering prayers in her native tongue. Days later, he woke to the soft crackle of a fire and the scent of herbs. His wound had been tended, her doing. She smiled when she saw him awake, relief washing over her like sunlight after rain. "You stubborn," she said, teasingly. "Cowboy heart strong." He chuckled hoarsely, wincing in pain. "Guess you were right about Savon, me." She tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "We save each other." In the months that followed, they rebuilt what the world had broken, not just the cabin, but themselves. Jack helped her reconnect with her tribe. And in return, they welcomed him as one of their own. A rare honor for a white man in those times. He found a new purpose among them, teaching, healing, protecting. The wild Apache girl who once lay dying in the sand became the heart of his life. The fire that melted the ice around his soul. And though the land remained hard and cruel, it no longer felt empty. Years later, when travelers passed through those canyons, they'd sometimes speak of a cowboy and an Apache woman who lived by the river. A pair whose love defied history. Whose story was whispered by the wind. Some said they'd seen them riding together at dawn, two silhouettes. Against the blazing sky, free and eternal as the desert itself. So, if you've come this far in their story, remember, healing doesn't always come from the easy roads or familiar faces. Sometimes, it's found in the eyes of someone the world told you to hate. Someone who shows you what it means to be truly alive again. Weeks passed. And the bond between Jack and Naya deepened like roots finding water in the desert. Jack's wound healed. But something else grew inside him, a peace he hadn't known since before the wars. Naya taught him her songs, her stories of the stars. And how every spirit had a purpose. He listened, his heart softening with each word. But one dawn, riders appeared on the ridge, bounty hunters searching for her. Jack didn't hesitate. He faced them, rifle steady, while Naya stood beside him, bow in hand. Together they fought, back to back, fire and steel against hate. When the last man fell, Naya turned to him, trembling. "You could have run," she whispered. "And leave you." He said softly. "You're my home now." Under the rising sun. Their eyes met, two souls scarred by the world. Healed by each other's courage.